which might be disadvantaged through their location or other disadvantages. So we assume that traditional studies and surveys on quality of life are very much focusing on big cities, on metropolitan areas, and do not adequately reflect development potentials and assets of smaller places or of, to some extent, disadvantaged places with specific development potential. So this is maybe the very the frame of the revival project. We are now in the second half of the project. We experience very big engagement also from the municipalities. We're very happy about this, and we see that the project is generating benefits for the partner towns. Unfortunately, one important measurement within the project is now a bit in threat due to the corona pandemics. So between April this year and September, our 10 partner cities were planning so-called action days. And we were planning to have a coordinated set of events on a Saturday, consisting of a cultural event, a exhibition that has been elaborated within the project, and other events in the inner cities on the market square in the most cases. And unfortunately, this is at the moment not possible due to the pandemic. So we have postponed these action days on cultural heritage and urban revitalization. And we hope that the partner cities are able to implement these action days in late summer and autumn this year. So this is the general frame of the project. So once again, we are focusing, or we're trying to support, so to give support to the 10 partner cities I mentioned in their ambition to strengthen identification, local identification in the places on the basis of their history and on the basis of their cultural heritage, what we define as built heritage on the one hand side, but also immaterial heritage like traditions, history, migration issues on the other side. So this is the general frame of the project, and maybe you just ask questions because I don't want to go into detail, because this might be information that you know already or might be boring for you. So I would just suggest that.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do is, if I may suggest, that I'll ask Anna to talk about if this is all right with everybody else, the castle and the experience from your perspective, which is slightly outside the city, of your relationships with the other cultural and touristic activities in the region and the other cities around about the castle's trail or whatever, because you have to go in 10 minutes. After that, I will ask Walbrzych to do their presentation on tourism and on regional development, and then we will come back to general discussion and general questions, and Robert can respond to the presentations. So if we do that. If everyone is happy with that, please say if you're not. Yeah. Okay, so Anna, do you want to just take over? I don't know whether you want to show us anything or just talk. It's up to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bert. And I want to apologize that I need to leave in like 12 minutes because I have another video conference with the Ministry of Tourism. So it's quite important. But if I will be able to come back, I'll surely do that. So first of all, as a CEO of the castle, I also would like to underline the fact that...
Sorry, Anna, can I interrupt? Since most people are Polish, do you want to speak in Polish? And then Robert can...
The better in Polish or English, it's up to you.
There are more Polish people here, and
okay,
Robert can listen to in Polish or switch to the English channel as he wishes.
So sorry, Bert.
No. Greg will do it.
It's fine. Dobrze, to będę mówić po polsku.
Okay, so I will be speaking Polish. Because I not only represent Książ Castle, but I also represent local tourist organization. We associate entities, tourist entities from Walbrzych and from region, 28 different entities. So I can talk on behalf of these entities. I can talk on behalf of smaller towns. Because they have different specificity. The CEO is responsible for all of these activities because this is the most representable attraction in Walbrzych, Książ Castle. What is important that last year our castle, over 530,000 people visited Książ Castle. Majority of them were people that don't live in Walbrzych. So people also around from abroad, not from Poland, but 70% is Polish tourism. We want to distribute these tourists around the whole region. So we want to take into account that with the old mine and the porcelain museum and palmiery, we have Expo Walbrzych, and we sell in all these tourist attractions the tickets, so the tourism from the Książ Castle visit other attractions like Old Mine and Palm House. And last year we sold over 36.5 thousand of such tickets. So of course, looking at this number, it's not very impressive, but if we look at it from the perspective of the fact that we do it without any costs, we do it for free, and we are, let's say, do it for free. So this is a good result, I think. In the context of the project we are talking about, what is important is this post-COVID-19 perspective, because the quality of life in smaller towns will be more important for the people from big metropolis. Because you said you were conducting research, we observe the trend, the tendency that more people from bigger cities like Wrocław are looking for real estate flats in Walbrzych or smaller towns, because people then can afford a garden because there are less people in Walbrzych and smaller towns, and it's this difficult times, it's really safer to live in smaller towns. So due to COVID-19, Walbrzych and other smaller towns can have a chance to develop. And as part of this project, because when you were preparing the project, you didn't take into account COVID-19, I think COVID-19 will have effect on revival project, and we need to take it into consideration. But talking about the potential, I was talking about the castle and to our results in terms of tourism, because we had 30% increase of tourists than the year before, than 2018. So you see, 30% of increase in terms of tourists. We had a great result, because in Poland the increase was only 6%. So our results was much better. It shows the potential of our city, of our towns and town around Walbrzych. I think this is it in terms of tourism and cultural tourism after COVID. So if you have any questions, I will gladly answer them now.
Okay, so I don't know if Robert has any questions. I have one question, which is the networks that you were talking about. How well structured are the links between the different towns and the way in which a tourist can have a common experience moving from one town to the other in an organized and easy way? Actually, I've got two questions. And secondly, you were talking about the Porcelain Museum and the Mining Museum and so on. I mean, what can be done to encourage more people to actually not just come to the castle, but come to the Mining Museum and the Porcelain Museum as well? So these are my two questions.
To odnosząc się do pierwszego pytania.
Okay, referring to the first question, a local tourist organization is association of municipalities and entities from Walbrzych and around Walbrzych, Walbrzych agglomeration. This association is in the Książ Castle, and it is there are 3 people working in the castle. These people realize tasks with local tourist association. We are based on these fees. We also get money from outside, so from Polish, Czech ministerial projects. This is based on projects that commonly we organize. We go to different fairs, we have joint promotion, we have joint offers, and we also invite tourist guides or tourist agencies, and we show such people this part of the Lower Silesia. We also meet every month together, and we talk about projects we want to realize. Of course, we don't have unlimited budgets, but due to the subsidy from the Polish-Czech entity, we have a lot of money. 600,000 Polish zloty is quite a lot, I think. This is as a part of the Polish-Czech project. What about the second question? So about Explore ticket. What is important here is the fact that we want to increase resources, money to sell the tickets. But we also need to talk about communication, transportation, and its availability. This is our greatest challenge because it's about 7 kilometers from Książ Castle to Old Mine. Also, tourists who are, traveling by train, they can get off on Walbrzych-Szczawienko, but it's still 2-3 kilometers to Książ Castle. Of course, there is a bus, but it goes every 1 hour. So it's not a very ideal connection, but at least there is some connection. But then to get again to Old Mine, to the city or to the museum, the person needs to take another buses, and the tourist has to change. And this is our great problem with communication. But here I have to tell you that we will build Walbrzych Center station, railway station, which will enable this transportation. And I think that people in our municipality will deal with this problem. And I think this is it. We have a coherent offer, and I think that our communication and our cooperation is great, but we need to promote it better. And I think this is the only challenge and the only challenge and issue.
Okay, thank you, Anna. So thank you very much. You have to go. Thank you for addressing that. So
see you soon.
Maybe see you later.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay. Okay, let us return to the original plan then, which is that Walbrzych was going to do a couple of presentations. The first, I think, on tourism and the cultural offering, and second on the regional dimension. And then Robert K., you and I will comment on that and ask questions. Okay? So, Edward, you look like you're about to go.
Tak jest. Tak jest. Dzień dobry, witam
That is
Państwa.
right. Yes, welcome to all of you. I've prepared a presentation not only to promote the tourism, which is our major area of focus, but also to promote, let's say, the other legs we are supported by. And promoting the city as a great place to live in permanently, and promoting the city as a green city. So let me share the screen and start the presentation. So full screen. Yeah. And so waiting to be discovered. This has been our slogan for 2 or 3 years. Of course, it's been changed. It's been translated into English and German. We're branding a lot of materials that we then make available outside to the tourists, but also during trade fairs, exhibition events. So that's been consistent in the last 2 years. The first part, Walbrzych as a tourist city. I will try to show you what do we do today. How do we promote the city today to the tourists, to attract as many people as possible to the city, not only in the region, but also across Poland. As Anna was saying, Książ Castle is the biggest tourist attraction in the region. 500,000 tourists a year, and this is definitely our flagship project in promoting creating the touristic vision of the city. So we're trying to focus on these 4 major venues that were mentioned, and also on the events that take part in these events. So this is definitely our flagship venue, the Książ Castle, because we see and we feel that this is the venue that generates the biggest touristic traffic. And then we're trying to combine it with other places so that all those tourists not only visit the castle, which is on the outskirts, but also other attractions. The old mine, last Saturday, it had its 250th anniversary. Unfortunately, the pandemics made it impossible for us to celebrate it in full. It was revitalized in 2014. We have the CEO of the old mine, so he will be able to chip in if needed. And we are trying to connect these with our voucher or combined ticket. Then we have the Walbrzych Bauhaus that also has been renovated quite profoundly in the last couple of years due to the Polish-Czech EU funding. And the 4th venue that is part of the Explore Walbrzych program is the Porcelain Museum, and this has one of the richest collections of historical Silesian porcelain, great architecture, but also great things to be seen inside. So Explore Walbrzych is 4 venues, one with 1 ticket. It's valid for throughout the year, and we are promoting it in this very way, as you can see. So billboards with this kind of content, or also online and in the press. And we really want the Książ Castle to be the attractor for the tourists, but then so that the tourists spend more time in Walbrzych, more move to the center. This is the COVID-19 related promotional campaign. The venues were closed for the last 2 months. So we imagined something to attract people after the pandemic. So we buy the voucher now, and then you can make use of it sometime later on. So we placed it on billboards all over town, also on the internet, and as you could see, um, the slogans, the mottos we used are quite catchy and quite young, so to say. And then we were joined by, for example, Aquasdrui, so the aqua park, and um, and other venues, theater, for example, for children's theater, joined our campaign as well. Puppet theater, sorry. Of course, Walbrzych is not only architecture and great venues, but also green pathways, both cycling pathways and foot pathways, walking pathways. Borowa is the highest summit in the area, and it's a great place, not as polluted, also not as full of tourists as other similar places in Poland. So the second leg I was mentioned that we are supported by in our promotional department is that Wałbrzych is also attractive as a place to live in, to stay in permanently. We're trying to encourage the citizens of bigger agglomerations to stay here. We are promoting the city because it's green, it's calm, it's quiet. So we're trying to sell this vision that is particularly important in the COVID-19 era. So we are green, we are safe, and we are not we're not polluted. We're also an eco city, a very important segment of our promotional activities. We are the first city in Poland and one of the first in the world that introduced a total ban on the use of disposable plastic packaging in municipal institutions as well as the events organized by the city, and we try to emphasize that everywhere. We also talked about flower meadows projects, limiting plastic. We want to boast that, and we want to focus on that in our promotional activities. This is basically a summary of what I said. So the total ban on the disposable plastic packaging, and these numbers give you how much can change in 1 year. So 108 one 108,487 the amount of bottles that will manage to limit the usage in the Wałbrzych. We also are trying to improve the blue infrastructure of the city. We try to improve the retention, water retention, rainwater in particular. Another important investment, cycling paths, and we also invest in public transport. Cycle lanes are quite important, or have been quite important in the last couple of years. I used Microsoft Paint to draw beautifully, as you can see, the amount of cycling lanes that go around Wałbrzych rather than through it. And then this is the blue line, and then the red and orange show you the ones that are planned. So as you can see, we have surrounded the city with cycling paths almost in 3/4 of distance. We would like to close that circle soon. So right now, this is main area of focus, or the biggest achievement. We also try to combine Wałbrzych with other neighboring communes. So So, for example, the blue line here, this is the road to Jedlina Zdrój, a neighboring health resort. We see the movement already. People coming from Podzamcze, one of the biggest concentration of one of the biggest housing estates in the city, to Jedlina Zdrój, which is green, which is ecological, which is nice. And then the red line is the cycling is the cycling path to Boguszowo-Gorce, and that also boasts a lot of tourists, especially looking for some spas and similar activities. We are trying also to promote that the fact that we modernize and renovate the oldest part of the city, and we use it as a part of our message in the media, in trade fairs as well. And you can see that with your own eyes. The people who visited Walbrzych 5 years ago, for example, are telling us that this is visible, more and more visible. Something for the future, we are trying to highlight the to some things we want to focus on in the future. These two are venues that are connected with the Hochberg family, the so that we are trying to renovate and turn into tourist attractions. One of them belonged to the famous Daisy Hochberg, also Daisy Villa, and then the other one we want to turn into the registry office, and but also it could be viewed by tourists. So this is another part of trying to attract more tourists, draw more tourists from the Książ Castle to the center of the city. Also, this is one of these photos is the former building of the firefighting force. We want to renovate it and turn it into a tourist attraction as well. So that's it in terms of brief introduction to tourism in Wałbrzych. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Uh,
I think we'll ask Robert Schmala to carry on with the second bit of that, and then we'll get into all the questions. And I think we have everything presented at the start to begin with, and then we can have discussion of this. Okay?
Okay, I think I can start if we are all ready. Can you see my presentation on the screen? Yes. Okay, I will start from polycentric Wałbrzych, what is differentiates us from other cities. Is that our historical structure consists of several cities and several dozens of estates that have been developing independently after the Second World War, based on Wałbrzych. All the one city was created, yes, based on all these areas. Consequently, the structure is polycentric, broad, but great thing about it is that what Anya mentioned is that we have a lot of green areas and recreational areas. Many estates were built based on gardens. Um, we have almost everywhere a human element. We have areas that are not associated only with historical Wałbrzych, but with people. Of course, we have infrastructural consequences. We have great access to green and recreation areas, as I mentioned, affordable property prices, which is not obvious today everywhere, and we constantly develop our communication skills with the region. The communication links, sorry, with the region. What is key associated with the project is to build roundabout around Walbrzych and to reconstruct to create a transfer hub in the city center. This has a great history of over 100 years. Today, from 1997, we are planning to build the stop in this place, but we go a bit further. We except for the stop, there will be a wonderful station which will connect all parts of the city. It will have a municipal aspect and it will connect it with the railway transportation. It will allow us to attract tourists from the whole area and it will give a lot of benefits to our citizens in terms of external connection with the city. This place will make it easier would make easier access to other tourist attractions. Even we can be compared to citizens from Wrocław. Well, what about other attractions in the city center? So like Old Mine, Porcelain Museum, and Daisy Villa, it will take only 40 minutes from the center of Wrocław to get there due to this project. And that's why this project is key for Wałbrzych. And I, as showed you at the beginning, the mosaic of polycentric city, the same mosaic of polycentric this is the mosaic of the cities that cooperate with us as part of the agglomeration or as a part of other projects. Walbrzych is undoubtedly the leader of such activities because Walbrzych initiated this cooperation with such cities and towns. Of course, we have towns which take part in the project presented by Robert. This project claims that the transportation problems will not be so severe because if next to the old mine we will have a station, we will have it will have a connection with attractions in Książ and with other districts in Wałbrzych, then it will allow transportation in the city to transport more tourists. In terms of regional aspects, is that Walbrzych has partner relations with 22 communes that are neighboring Walbrzych. We created agglomeration council, which is a cooperation platform where all decisions are being made. It represents the area outside so we think about revitalization of Express Road or about renovation of A4 motorway. So we will try to speak together about it, to agree about it, because it's beneficial to our region. What is also important is that Wałbrzych, as part of this agglomeration, tried to get subsidies for the agglomeration. So we work with ITI. We have our own money, we have our own resources, and we also cooperate under the project Sudety 2030 strategy. This is a kind of a counterweight to the Wrocław metropolitan area. Many times I underline the fact that Wałbrzych doesn't compete with Wrocław, but is trying to, in a creative way, cooperate with Wrocław. We want to provide stability to our region. Okay, so it was a very, very short presentation, but I didn't have much time, so I will maybe add something later if I will have a chance.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. Do you want to take your screen down? Good, excellent. So I think what I'd like to do now is to, has Edward gone away? Is he left or is he coming back? First question.
He's visiting the mayor right now because he got a urgent invitation. Probably he will be back.
Okay, fine. I think Robert K in Dresden, if you could respond a bit to what has been presented from Walbrzyk's point of view about the kind of opportunities which they're exploring in what they've set out in terms of tourism and regional links, and just give some view both about how that relates to the work of revival, and to this whole question about the relationship with Wrocław on the one hand and Walbrzych, and then the smaller cities on the border. If you could perhaps come back in at this point and respond.
Well, I see that Walbrzych is really on a good trajectory, and of course, tourism plays an important role. I mean, not only economically, but within the revival project, we learned that tourism also plays an important role for internal identification and valorization of what is there. And I assume that also touristic networks are important for that. So in the revival project, we have been carrying out so-called focus group workshops in each of the partner towns. And here it became clear that tourism is important also for the internal identification and as I said before, valorization of cultural heritage aspects and indigenous development potential. So to make it short, people just recognize their place being interesting if tourists are coming to the place, and for that reason only places like Książ are for sure important, not only economically for the city of Walbrzych. So I think this is quite consequently to as Anna presented, to treat Zamek Książ as one of the major attractions, not only bringing tourists into the region and into the city, but also creating a feeling of proud. And I mean, this is specific, what is my perspective from the outside to Walbrzych. It's a very specific place that it was an industrial city and still is an industrial city, but is integrated into a green, mountainy landscape. So I think that that image really plays an important factor, and I think what you said is very much relevant for urban development. That and this is also what we assume in our research, that yes, smaller places which are a bit beyond might mean relief for the more and more congested big places, and this is also true for Germany. So we can see more and more that the big cities, I mean, not all of the German cities, but most of the German cities are really congested meanwhile, that they are very attractive, have a lot of in-migration, and that they show more and more disadvantages concerning exploding prices for renting a flat or starting your business when it comes to finding adequate workspace or office space or studio space or things like this. and that more and more people also, when it comes to the phase of establishing, setting up a family, more and more younger people between 30 and 40 really think about leaving the bigger cities and going to some other places, and not to the villages, but to smaller places that have urban characteristic, stable infrastructure. Public transport accessibility plays an important role. So we can see this in Germany, and I think this is very much the case, for example, in Lower Silesia, where Wrocław agglomeration development dynamic is very characteristic for the region, with other places only 40, 50 kilometers beyond Wrocław facing severe development problems. So I think it's the right strategy to focus on endogenous potential, on cultural heritage, on tourism, on landscape assets, because these are the potential, the southern part of the Sudets foreland and the Sudets have surely. When it comes to COVID-19, we just started to think about what influence this might have on urban and regional development. We're sure that it will have influence, but this is still a new topic. And maybe a last point to the last slide that Robert showed. Yes, I think that regional cooperation is very important also in a setting that Lower Silesia is focusing with a very strong focus on Wrocław and the Wrocław obszar agglomeracyjny, to indeed create a counterpart to this strong core, and to establish to speak with one voice in Wrocław, in Warsaw, in Brussels, and so on. And I think it's really a good initiative with the regional cooperation concerning integrated territorial investments. I think, yes, this is the right way. But very appreciate to see this.
Okay, so can I ask a couple of questions here? I mean, one thing is about the, actually, it's a question which Magic raised. So do you want to ask your question about the station, Magic? Hello? Okay. Magic asked, in planning that the new railway station is going to be very near the old mine. Are there any plans to have a railway stop very near the castle in that network of rail, so that these two can be directly connected?
Ja może się włączę, Bert. Może się włączę.
Maybe I will join in.
Yeah, I asked you to. Yeah.
My question was supposed to be the kind of provocative in nature here, and I'm not sure if we heard that before. I wanted to emphasize high dynamics in the high volatility of the situation. Robert Kay also mentioned that we are in the midst of great pandemics that will change the world profoundly, but maybe nobody had that idea. But 2 weeks ago, Polish government announced that they will start 200 new stations on already existing rail lines. So I'm traveling by train quite commonly, and I go through the forest that, and I would love to exit the train at that point, take a short walk through the forest, and then be in the be in the castle, and we can combine it with the Golden Train, which is also a famous tourist attraction. our foreign guests, so Robert Kay, also mentioned very important thing, that tourism should not only be a magnet for tourists, but also a identity building tool for the inhabitants that will build the sense of belonging, that will build pride, and but maybe also change the way of living, way of life, way of spending free time. But it's also favorable for people who are thinking about Wałbrzych as the location of a place, as a place to settle in, making it more attractive, making it more symbolic, with some history, building some positive connections. Like there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of places you can locate your company in right now. But I think right now companies make part of their branding that they are moving, they are located in this or that place. So they are using part of the city branding to help their branding in a way.
Great. Okay, can I have Robert Schmala first and then Robert Kay after that? And I don't know whether Mrs. Kluzek wants to come in. She was gesticulating there quite widely, so let's take it in that order. Robert, yes.
I agree with Maciek, let's say, on principles that he presented. It would be nice to have a station close to the castle. Unfortunately, the city, the shape of the city, the shape of the city makes it impossible, because the Shawienko railway station that we have right now is the closest possible to the currently existing rail line. Of course, right now we are thinking of connecting the Shawienko railway station with the castle by cycling lane. So maybe that is some idea. We used to have that kind of a plan. So. Whenever there will be time and resources to do that, probably we will do that. But I think what Anna said is very important. So we need to be communicated internally quite well, so that you can get through between venues from railway stations, regardless of what railway station would that be. So I agree with you, Maciek. As for the idea, unfortunately, the shape of the city, of the railway line, makes it impossible, at least very difficult, unless we will find this mysterious tunnel with the golden train. Then maybe it will be convenient in building this new connection.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Robert Kay, do you want to come in? You were indicating.
Yeah, thanks. No, I just wanted to underline what Maciej said, because indeed I think that things like image and how a place sounds outside of the place is very important, not only when it comes to decision making among enterprises looking for a good location, but also for new residents. The image is very, very important. And I mean, Walbrzych doesn't have the best image in Poland, and this has to be changed. And everything what you do to change this is the right way. I mean, you showed these fancy marketing things. I think yes, this is the right thing to do. Everything what is enhancing the image and getting old pictures out of the heads is important. And this is also true for economic development, because an entrepreneur will only go to a place where he or she can be sure that skilled labor is coming to this place. I mean, this is what we can see also in Germany, that I mean, innovative enterprises are dependent on immigration, because in no place in Germany a highly innovative enterprise is finding labor force locally or regionally. So a new investment and producing something innovative based on research is dependent on in-migration. It doesn't matter if it is Munich or Hamburg or whatever, and this means that the image and the sound of a place, how it sounds, is so important.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to come in, Eva?
I think that we should fulfill our dream, so to build a railway line like like they have in Barcelona, for example, that will combine the old mine with the Książ Castle, with the Palm House. Sorry, like a tram line,
Yeah.
rather than a railway line. It is possible probably in the PPP, within the PPP, or by a private investor that can benefit from it. A city of Walbrzych is full of hills, so the tourists will benefit, but also the citizens it would be easier for the citizens to communicate.
Okay, thank you. So,
Okay.
yeah. Does someone else want to come in now? I wanted to ask a question of Robert Kay when you talked about focus groups you were having in the small towns in the revival project, because I was interested in the idea that, well, I was interested to know what they were trying to achieve. Were you trying to get the views of the citizens about what they believed to be the important positive points about the city? Were you trying to get them engaged in cultural activity? What were you trying to do with these groups, and why was it important to do that?
Well, the purpose of setting up this focus group workshops was to test our hypothesis we elaborated together with the Polish colleagues on the capitalization of cultural heritage to quality of life locally. And therefore we organized this focus group workshops, and we left it up to the municipalities whom to invite there. But we learned that this was, I mean, we gained a lot of knowledge on this and information. And I mean, we have seen that these questions can only be answered locally. So each place, each town has its own identity and its own local assets, disadvantages, and advantages. If we would try to generalize a bit what is not so easy, we learned that, of course, the socio-economic status quo and the demographic trends plays an important role. And we've also seen that size matters a bit. So we've seen that in particular the small places like Reichenbach or Lubawka or Lubomierz are suffering of the loss of local jobs, let's say. So commuting is a problem here because the stakeholders were saying that maybe the socio-economic situation is not so bad, and it enhanced tremendously on the German, but in particular on the Polish side. But the problem is that we don't have enough jobs locally, though. So we are facing a kind of deterritorialization, and we're losing place attachment. So people are out commuting in the morning, in commuting in the evening. We are losing infrastructure, so people do their shopping in the bigger cities. We're losing infrastructure, we're losing amenities, and with this we're losing the connection between people and the place. And this is a problem when it comes to appreciation of cultural heritage, when it comes to local and distinctive quality of life. But this is a question between this basically a question of jobs, infrastructure, retail, and these things. And we see a process of concentration, and I think this is really specific for the border region in Saxony and Lower Silesia, that really economic success is really focusing in the bigger places, not only Wrocław but also Legnica, Bolesławiec, with these smaller places being a bit left behind, and there's really a threat of this kind of deterritorialization, and this is really a problem when places want to attract also new inhabitants.
Okay, thank you. So I'm pausing to see if anyone wants to ask something here. My question would be of Walbrzych. It's about what you said there, Robert, about the local and distinctive culture and quality of life, and the extent to which Walbrzych has engaged with local people to ask them directly what they think of the city, how they believe the city is distinctive, or what it is particularly that makes them proud to live there, whether that is an exercise which has been done or might be done, or indeed, Robert, if you think it would be useful to do it, you seem to have done it in your cities, but I'm interested to know from Walbrzych what they think the distinctive, important aspects of the city are that would attract other people there. Anyone? What about Edward? You must have an idea. Okay. No one want to pick that one up? Okay.
Just a minute. Justyna, I think, wants to.
Okay.
In the last months, we have tried to create a local development program, develop a program, and such surveys were conducted. So how Walbrzych citizens, Walbrzych inhabitants perceive their city, what makes them stay in the city, what makes them leave the city. Quite a complex survey, because there were open questions there. As far as I remember, the inhabitants feel connected with the city. I think the majority of people were willing to stay in the city if they were given good accommodation and good working conditions. This is something that is a challenge for us to provide that to as many people as possible. So the Edward was mentioning that we're trying to promote not only outside of Walbrzych but also inside, that Walbrzych is a good place to live, to stay in. I think, touristically speaking, Walbrzych inhabitants know their tourist attractions, know the places to go to, but whether it's something that convinces them to stay in the city, I'm not sure. since the survey pointed out different aspects.
I mean, that's thank you for that. It's interesting that, to me, that good jobs and good housing are fairly universal needs rather than being very specific needs about the place itself. I mean, you could ask anyone anywhere what they want: good job, good house, you know, cheap food. But was there anything more Walbrzych specific within their replies? They mentioned the hills, they mentioned the tourist attraction, they mentioned the sense of history. I don't know, or was it mainly just these general things? Ah, yeah.
So the Old Mine, CEO of the Old Mine Museum. For me, Walbrzych is the natural leader of the Walbrzych agglomeration that was mentioned by Robert S. Wrocław is the metropolis that we won't and can't keep up with. But if we compared similar cities in the similar cities in the region, we do have the cultural competitive advantage that was not highlighted today, I think, not emphasized today. In Walbrzych, we have cultural institutions, for example, that bigger cities have, like philharmonics, for example, 2 theaters, dramatic and puppet theater. So this is the added value that we may use that would be difficult to create from scratch in other cities that would try to pretend to this secondary leader title. This is disadvantage, I think. That's at least for me, that would be the argument to settle in Walbrzych, because it's an attractive way of spending free time. It's something that you won't find. Not to belittle other cities, but you won't find it in, I don't know, Głuszyca or Świdnica or in Jelenia Góra. So for me, that would be an advantage to focus on. Well, my museum is also maybe one element of that, but you don't visit museum on an everyday basis or weekly or monthly. So with theaters, cinemas, Walbrzych is a slow city for me, but with great cultural background as well, and aspirations as well.
Okay, thank you. So, Robert K., if I may, in the work of revival, I mean, we've just heard about the cultural activities in Walbrzych, theatre and so on. I mean, to what extent do the smaller cities have a different kind of cultural identity, or what do you see as the cultural identity of Walbrzych? And is it shared by the kind of cross-border smaller towns which may have more local historical cultural singing groups or dancing groups or groups who partake in more regional customs? Is there more of a regional traditional identity of some kind that is reflected there that could be part of Walbrzych? Or is Walbrzych, because it's a coal mining town and lots of people have come from somewhere else, it lacks that local cross-border cultural identity, do you think?
Well, I'm always impressed.
Ja zawsze jestem.
I can say this as a German. I'm always impressed about the scale of local and regional identities, especially in particular in Lower Silesia, coming from history. And this is also true for the revival partner cities. I mean, this is not only in Walbrzych, but in many other mining cities and former mining regions, that really a big part of the identity got lost in quite a short period of time. I mean, this change and the phase out of coal mining was quite radical in Walbrzych and in Nowa Ruda. And I mean, this has to be compensated, and this needs time to find a new history. And therefore, I think, yes, infrastructure is important, cultural infrastructure is important, and to create a new image internally, but also to the outside. I mean, in the revival city, we have the advantage that all these 10 cities have a similar historical trajectory. Were all founded in the 13th century, basically, and they have similar urban historic town patterns and so on. And yeah, Walbrzych is a special place. Also, what I know physically, it is quite spotty, and this, of course, makes it very, 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 very difficult. But what I hear is I think the right way, and I think the old Stara Kopalnia is a very important physical place to refer to the city's history and piece of identity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, who wants to come in at this point? Can I just ask Robert Schmala, a question then? Because you were talking about Wrocław and saying that it was the economic hub, but you weren't in competition with it. But how do you think you can best relate to that larger city? I mean, is it simply by housing people who will live and now commute to the city, or how can you be much more joined symbiotically with it in a way that you both get benefit from being near to each other?
I think it's not a matter of our activities per se, because there have been some processes that are that have been going for a couple of years. We're modernizing the railway line because the Polish rail decided to modernize, and the fact that the Polish rail decided to modernize the Wałbrzych Central Station is of course is of course due to the lobbying of Wałbrzych local government, but also Wrocław wanted that, and then Wrocław participated in this initiative, in this campaign, in this lobbying, being fully aware that being the second most important urban center of the region. So we need each other. It's not about competing with each other. It's not about being dependent on one another. But as you said, it's kind of a symbiosis that is undergoing in the city. So you can't force it sometimes. You can't force these processes sometimes. You just need to follow or adapt to it. And it's like a gravitational model. These two cities were in kind of connection, like two planets, or a planet and a moon. So it's an intentional idea to combine Walbrzych to the region. Of course, everyone would like probably to live in a city so calm and peaceful as Walbrzych, and then earn a lot of money in Wrocław. But we observe also that in the municipality there are people who live in Walbrzych and work in Wrocław, but also vice versa. And I don't feel that we should feel offended if somebody just wants to live in Walbrzych and then take advantage of a greater average salary in Wrocław. And then maybe if we may manage to create a big group of these people and we will keep changing to the better, then maybe some of these people, at least some of these people working in Wrocław would then decide, why would I do that anymore if I can stay in Walbrzych and work in Walbrzych as well? Of course, there is a question of different parts of or moments of life we people are in. So different different ages will probably need different pace of life. But I think, yeah, the symbiosis is the key word here, and we should strive to make it as strong as possible, as successful as possible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So time is almost up. So I want to do two things. First, just ask whether anyone from the Walbrzych side wants to ask Robert K. any questions. And after that, ask Robert to just sum up Robert K. in terms of any particular things that he thinks he'd like to encourage Walbrzych to do more.
There is one thing that Ms. Treasure wanted to say.
Please. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to ask Robert K. If while visiting Lower Silesia, how often do you get to visit Walbrzych? What is the reason usually for doing that?
Well, not so easy to answer. I've visited the city indeed for personal interest, and I've been during the last years a couple of times because I was part of a cooperation project between the Lower Silesian Marshal Office and the Saxon Ministry for Internal Affairs. And during 3 years, we had a couple of workshops, but that had nothing to do with urban development or regional development in Walbrzych. We just met in Walbrzych. Yeah, from time to time, I'm there, and I find that this is a very interesting place. And I said before, we're also dealing with old industrial and former mining or transforming minor mining regions and cities. So Walbrzych is extremely interesting.
Okay. Okay, so finally, unless anyone else has got another question, I know that Robert has to go, but I think thank you all very much for your contributions. Robert, just as a last word, is there something a couple of things which you think you've been very encouraging to what Walbrzych has been saying and what it's been doing, but are there a couple of things you want to say about maybe they could do more of this, because in the German towns you've been working with, these things haven't been mentioned in what they're doing and they might be helpful?
Well, maybe a last word. I think this question of attracting new inhabitants is really crucial for almost all the places, because in Germany, as well as in Poland, natural demographic trends are negative. So places are dependent on in-migration, on new inhabitants. And the question is how to attract new inhabitants. And there's an interesting model we are coordinating in Görlitz since a couple of years what is the approach of residents on trial. We call this project Miasto na próbę. And within this project, potential new inhabitants have the opportunity to come to the city for 4 weeks, and we offer a flat for free and a workspace for free. And we are doing scientific questionnaire and an interview of what people expect that are coming for these 4 weeks to the place and what their experiences are. So if you are interested in the results and the approach of this project, I can give you some more information about that. So this is a long-running experimental real-world laboratory, living laboratory, and we are doing the scientific analysis of this project.
Great. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So we will end there, and I will share with all of you the links between you so you can keep in touch. And the revival project is carrying on for another year, and so that'll be great. And in the meantime, thank you all very much indeed. And some of you I will see very soon later this week. Okay, and thank you, Robert, for coming. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.